Well, thank you, Janet. I cannot tell you how happy I am being in such a good company with Janet and Robert in AMBA and with all the business schools representatives that have joined today, some of which are already prime signatories and others are not. I would like just to start by breaking the news that now AMBA, as an association, is part of the governance body of Prime. We had a meeting of the steering committee on the 22nd of January, and AMBA was decided that AMBA should be part of the steering committee. So I think that this is really, a triumph and is such a good asset for the whole initiative. And therefore, I wanted to congratulate us all because of this move and now AMBA being part of our governing body. So just to break a little bit the fire, warm up, as a warm up introduction, I would like to talk a tiny bit about why we have this initiative called Prime. I would say a UN supported initiative. And I would like just to start by saying that, even if it's 2 years from now, the year 2008 remains for me and probably for all of us as a year that was particularly complex and in which, but at the same difficult and at the same time very revealing. And just to remind you that, we learned a lot, that year because, in my opinion, a new global agenda was unveiled. If you remember at the beginning of the year, we had this energy crisis and then a food security crisis that, by the way, has not been still solved. And in the second half of the year, we saw the collapse of the credit system and a rapid spread of the recession, probably the biggest in our lifetime. And out of that, I would say that there are two important consequences. The first one is that I think that we are now realizing that we are living in a world in which the four basic pillars of human growth, i.e. climate change and food security, water and energy, are under stress. And at the same time, and therefore we have to cope with that in business education, because obviously, these stresses are going to determine for the next decades, maybe 2-3 decades, the bulk of private and public investment. Now the question is that are we aware as educators that is the new landscape that we have in front of us, that we have this new global agenda? Well, I would say that, really, doing a search, apart from some courses on sustainability, really climate change has not been integrated into educational efforts in the curriculum of business schools. And this is something that we discussed already in Prime in the international conference that we had last November in Copenhagen, hosted by the Copenhagen Business School. And at the same time, still we are with the recession, still we are discussing the question of financial regulation and so on. But what is clear is that the economic and financial crisis, has put into doubt many so far uncontested principles concerning the firm and management, and they have into question. So, I think that it's also important that we realize that we live in a time in which we need to introduce new issues in business education. And issues like human rights and labor rights, the question of transparency and anti-corruption, the questions concerning strategic philanthropy, social investment, the question of new business models, the Millennium Development Goals. All this means that there is, in my opinion, the need for an overall effort to update all disciplines in management education. Let me read very briefly something that I read yesterday. It says, and it's an article, the Aspen Institute latest Beyond Grey Pinstripes ranking of the world's MBA programs on environmental and social stewardship reveals that these programs pay little attention to the social dimension of sustainability. Poverty and human rights appear in less than 2% of all courses description and only in 14 of all courses that are listed by the Aspen Institute. And those are really, literally thousands. Now, the co-authors of this article, they say that the drive to transform management into value-free science based on market fundamentalism and shareholders' value maximization has divorced business school research and teaching from life-affirming values, collective welfare, and ecological limits. Business schools now espouse efficiency rather than equity. Moral questions are treated as tangential rather than fundamental to business decisions. And they conclude by saying that in an interdependent world confronting growing environmental scarcity and human deprivation, we will need business leaders who can create social value without increasing energy and material throughput. Leadership for sustainability needs to become the organized principle of management education. Now, this is something that I am not saying myself. It's something that I read yesterday in the Financial Times in the business education section. It was written by two professors of the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. So the question is that I think that it's important to realize that everybody, I would say, feels the same. We feel that management education has to change. The question, in my opinion, is not anymore what the business case to change, because the landscape is changing. The question is how. So I would say that companies, on the other hand, are, and I'm talking about responsible companies, and mind you, CSR and sustainability in this broad sense that this company is also social issues, is a new international trend. It is already there. And companies that are responsible are asking, are we receiving the new generation of professionals prepared to cope with this new environment? Well, there you have some figures of a survey done last year by Ashridge, Matthew Grisham in Ashridge, and it was presented in the Prime Global Forum. 66% of senior executives say that it's important that future professionals have the knowledge and skills to respond to trends like resource scarcity, the low carbon economy, and doing business in emerging markets, but only less than 8% believe that these knowledge and skills are being developed very effectively either by their own organizations or by business schools. So I would say that all this scenario adds a note of urgency to initiatives like Prime. As I said, it's not anymore the question of what, if we need to change. The question is how. And I would say that the how could be partially at least answered by Prime as an initiative. Prime is just a global call. And a global call that is asking us to change together and in a systemic way the curriculum, the research and the learning methods of management education, incorporating at the core of the vision the tools and the skills that we teach, values of sustainability and corporate citizenship, values like the ones of the United Nations Global Compact. I cannot, go throughout the principles very quickly in these first introductory remarks, but I would like to say that the principle for responsible education starts by saying this sentence: and institutions of higher education involved in the development of current and future managers, we declare our willingness to progress in the implementation within our institution of the following principles, starting with those that are more relevant to our capacities and mission. Prime, therefore, is a gradual call. We are very aware that the curriculum, the research, and the learning methods cannot be changed overnight from one day to another. So, to subscribe to sign on Prime is just to state the conviction by the body of a business school, both administrators and faculty, that they are determined to walk, along that path of progress.